okay. People aren't expecting you to
Right.
be perfect, you know?
No.
Everyone, we're all people. We're just
Yeah, right.
going
We
through life.
are.
We're doing our thing. So you just got to just put
Yeah,
yourself out there, and it's okay if you make mistakes. You just get
it
right back up and
totally
try again,
is.
you know? So,
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I know. I think that that's a stumbling block for a lot of women who want to start a business, especially, is
mhm.
just, this idea of like everything has to be perfect.
Yeah.
And I can't do it until this situation lines up perfectly. And,
Hmm.
they let limiting beliefs like, oh, I don't want to start a business because I'll have to work 24/7.
Hmm.
And what I love about your business, I'm sure that you work after your classes and whatnot, but you really make it fit your schedule, right?
Yes. And I have a good example of that, actually.
Oh, I'd love to hear
Um,
about that.
I will say, yeah, I will say at first, for me, I do have
Mhm.
to shut it down at times
Mhm.
because I
Yeah.
will, about a week ago, it was 2 a.m. and I was still up prepping for camps, cutting things, whatever. And I'm like having a great old time. Woo! And then I'm
Yeah.
like, ooh, two. And I'm like, and I'm exhausted the next day.
Yeah.
And I didn't sleep because I'm thinking, oh, the choreography, the songs going through my head,
Mhm. Mhm.
did I do, oh, I forgot to do that. Oh, did
Uh-huh.
that kind of thing. And so I said,
Yeah.
nope, boundaries, right? I
Right.
have to cut it off at a certain time so
Mhm.
that I can relax the brain, right? So there's
Right.
that.
Right.
So
So
you
it's
do kind of have to,
you instead of
yeah,
somebody giving you a structure. Okay, you need to show up at 9 and you can
right.
go home at 5.
Yes.
You have to learn that muscle.
Yes, you do. But it's awesome because
Yeah.
once you realize that you need to do that and sort of
Uh-huh.
set your boundaries, your
Right.
parameters, whatever, you can set those within what it is that you or your family
Yeah.
schedule needs, right? So
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
know this is my example that I was going to tell you. I
Okay.
used to teach Saturday mornings
Uh-huh.
for 2 years. When I launched my business here
Mhm.
in Florida,
Mhm.
I taught Saturday mornings and
Mhm.
I loved Angela. I loved my Saturday morning classes, getting up and getting ready. And other than
I sense a butt
Daryl and the
coming in.
kiddos, but I, there is a but. I'd see my family. Oh, great. Breakfast, whatever,
Yeah.
coffee,
See you
wonderful. And then
later.
I got to see these they were two at the time. They were 2 years
Oh.
old. And I got to teach the
Mhm.
I think they were 2 to 5, 2 or 3 year olds, and then 4 to 6 or something. Anyway,
Right.
and I loved it. It
Mhm.
was just so fun.
Mhm.
The last spring of the second year, the spring
Mhm.
of that, um, I missed all of my kids' soccer games except for one each. I missed every soccer game of Javon's except for
Mm.
one, and every
Mm.
soccer game of Jasmine except for one.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I remember being in tears going,
Yeah.
I have missed their entire season. For some
Right.
reason, the way that the schedules worked out in the fall, I saw a lot of them. So I was like, oh, good to
Mhm.
go. They were later games, right? So I
Right.
could kind of finish up and then go. But in the spring, they were all early.
Yeah.
And I looked at Daryl's like, I can't do Saturdays. I can't do Saturdays
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah.
He's like, babe, you can't do Saturdays.
Yeah.
So it was a difficult step to take, when you send out that email and you
Yeah.
have it sitting there and you're like, and you're
Mm.
like, oh, I got to send it. And
Right.
you got to force yourself to send, right? Because it's not something I
Right.
wanted to do, but I had to, right?
Mhm.
But I was
Yeah.
able to because it was my
Mhm.
own business. So I was able to make
Right.
that choice, right? So since then, I've
Mhm.
seen all of the Saturday things.
Aw.
Everything Saturday and
Yeah.
Sunday, I've been able to see for them, their
Yeah.
games or classes or performances or whatnot.
Right.
So
Yeah.
um, so that is pretty awesome that
Yeah.
as a business owner, you can make your own schedule, you can make your
Yeah.
own
Yeah.
set your own parameters.
I mean, that's
So,
why I became a business owner because it
mm-hmm,
was, and then I really shifted from legal because it wasn't, I was on somebody else's schedule. I was on the court schedule or the attorney's schedule who had
Yeah.
procrastinated for weeks, or
Yes, pressure,
whatever.
right? For you, right?
And it was just like, look, I want to be the one to do my daughter's bun and take her to ballet class or what,
Yep.
I mean, it was just non-negotiable for me, just like
Right.
you. And
Yep.
it was just like, okay, this is what I have to do. And it was just like, it.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
not easy, but it's like, this is the choice I have to make.
Yes, absolutely.
But
Yep.
yes, as a business owner, like I can't imagine like
Yep.
having to ask somebody that, or having to think like, oh, I have to quit this job because, I can't do that anymore. But yeah, I just, I love that. So where do you think that you would be had you not started your own business? Now that we talk about being able to make that flexibility, and what if you hadn't pushed through that fear? And
Wow.
what if you hadn't, you let that fear just kind of engulf you and thought, no, everything's got to be perfect. It's not. I like to help people understand, like, if they're on that edge of should I do this or not, somebody who's been through, a good journey of starting their business, where do you feel that you would be had you not taken that risk?
Wow, that's a really good question, because it's really hard to say, right? Because when that hasn't happened, you're like, ooh, I don't. But I would probably be maybe a little bit frustrated, that I didn't follow through on that, and seeing other. It's a hard question, because on one hand, I loved working in other people's studio setting. Right. There was something just fun about going in, doing your classes, and there's a huge community. There's not so much pressure. You just go in and you, teach your classes. There is work at home. I like to go in prepared. I'm not one of these, like, just go in at the first minute and figure it out. So there's preparation, there's music, there's choreography, there's choosing costumes, all that outside of. But there was something kind of refreshing about that, But I think if I had not started my own business, I might... you'd wonder, right? Oh, I wonder how it would have been if I had done that, if I had followed through, right? Maybe a little bit of frustration, like, why didn't I do that? Why didn't I just go for it and try it, And so I think I'd live with some of that, just wondering why, like, ooh, maybe I could have had this or done that, or just wondering what it would be like. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It does, but it doesn't sound like you have any regrets.
No, nope, no regrets. No, it's been wonderful. It's been really, really wonderful.
Yeah, and so how many students do you think now you've had over? How many years have you been in business? Like 5?
I'm going into my 7th.
Oh, wow.
I've done 6, yes. Because I've done 5 recitals, and my first year I didn't have recitals. So I'm going into my 7th. Yeah, I had to think about that for a minute. The time flies, right? Really, it does fly. Oh, wow. I mean, hundreds, really, because some students start and they keep going. I have students with me now that were in my very first, very small first season. My first season was very small. I had probably 19 students at that preschool that I spoke about. And I had 6 in our community, Angela, where we are. I had 6. Right? That first dance season. And it was so small, and I loved it. I thought, this is great. But, kind of a good way to start, right? Yeah. Just a nice, small little scale while I was sort of figuring out the ropes of all that business side that we talked about. So it was really good that we started kind of small. right?
Mm-hmm.
And now I have, pre-COVID, I was supposed to, like, September of 2020, I was supposed to have 7 locations. And then, of course,
Wow.
COVID hit. So that
Yeah.
set things way back. I was on track to have about 100 and potentially 130 students that year. And then that thing all
Right.
happened.
Right.
So, so things dramatically changed, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm building that back up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This year I had about 90 or so.
Right.
And then next year, putting more locations in there.
That's
So I'll
great.
have some more students
That's
as
great.
well. But I was saying I have some students that stick with it the whole time, and others that kind of dance for a year or two, and then they want to try something else, because
Mm-hmm.
the kids are exploring when they're younger, right?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Especially my business, they're 3 or 4 to about end of elementary-ish, like 10 or
Mm-hmm.
11 or so.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes dance is just, oh, let's try it out. And they do it for a year or two. They have fun, but now we want to do soccer or
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is,
Mm-hmm.
golf or
Mm-hmm.
swimming or whatever. So,
Right.
and then some kids, it's their thing, right? And they
Oh,
just stick
yeah.
with it. So it's been
You're
hundreds
like a
since I
launching
started.
pad to like a whole other level too.
Yeah,
If
which is also wonderful. Wonderful.
gosh.
It's,
Yeah.
yeah, it's fabulous.
Yeah.
If you can instill that um, joy of dance in people that want to
Mm-hmm.
pursue it,
Oh
like
my
your daughter,
gosh.
and they want to do more, she wants more. I want to do 3, 4, 5, 6 classes a week. I know you're in the middle of that now.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's fabulous. I'm always like, yay, it's great. I love it.
Yeah.
And then
I'm
just
just
for those,
grateful I have 2 that want to do the same thing.
oh,
Oh
yes.
my
Yes, you
gosh.
definitely should be. It makes life
Yeah,
much
I
easier,
don't know.
especially in
Oh,
that competitive, or not competitive, but in the world where they are taking many, many classes per week,
right.
right?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's whether it's competitive or otherwise, but just
Yeah.
when that's their thing, right? It is easier
Right.
when they're both into the
Mm-hmm.
same art form or activity for sure.
Right.
Hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
So if you could send a message back to Miss Jennifer 7 years ago when you were starting all of this, what would you tell her?
I would definitely tell her to set this fear aside and to just follow where the dream leads her.
Right.
That's what I would say. Set the fear
Yeah.
aside, baby
Right.
steps, and just follow where
Mm-hmm.
it takes you. You don't
Mm-hmm.
have to launch your business the first year
Mm-hmm.
and be at its max capacity. It's
Right.
okay if it's a
Mm-hmm.
little bit on the easier side, if it is
Right.
smaller. It
Oh
is, you're
yeah.
just starting small. Have
Yeah.
it like okay, you may have an ultimate goal that's
Right.
like big, like a
Right.
big dream. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Right.
But that doesn't mean right out the gate you have to achieve
Yes.
that right away.
I
You
mean,
can make you can make little goals sort of
I
along the
started a
way.
travel business in the midst of a pandemic. I know what that's
Oh,
like.
girl, yes, you did.
People were like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah. But you went
But
for it,
yeah.
Angela. You went for it,
Well,
and
I
it's
mean,
doing
it was
so well.
I took that advice from some leaders in the industry in that if you wanted to do it, that time was the time. So you could get your feet wet and do all the training and figure it all out. So when the boom would happen, like is happening now,
Yes.
that
Yes.
you would be positioned. And they were so right. And now travel advisors are, everybody wants one because they're like, I don't know what's going to happen. What did or they're just nervous. That's what I really love, is just taking that nervous traveler and making them super confident and, okay, I can do this,
Yeah.
but yeah, it goes to your point in that I think it's very wise to, you can have that big goal, dream big, start small.
Yep, that's it. And you have those little mini goals along the way, maybe, okay, in 6 months, I'd like to be here and work towards that. okay, you know what? In another 3, I'm going to aim to get here, or whatever your time frame is, and just slowly grow it. Then it's not so overwhelming, and it's not so, you don't have as much doubt creeping in, because you're just doing the little baby steps along the way, you know, and you'll eventually get there. Trust me. If you put your heart into it, and you put your love and your focus into it, it'll happen and it will grow. There's room for all of us, in all industries.
Absolutely.
You know?
And you really have to be in it for the long game.
Yeah.
Because it's just something that will take you many places. Just like I was saying, this podcast, I never thought that this would be a part of this other thing that I do, but it is, and I just went with it. I couldn't choose. I'm like, I love travel, but there are these women that just come into my life that need inspired and information. And I know all of these great women like yourself who have been there. And I just want to have this platform to, you know, have a community, or, you know, so they can have the confidence to build the business that fits their life.
Yeah, absolutely. It's wonderful.
So, yeah. But, I think that you shared so much great information, and I think we're probably, we're just right about at the time that we had set aside. So Jennifer, thank you so much for joining me. I love this. How can people find you? Like if they have questions about how to start a dance studio, or they're interested, are you still doing like the online classes?
I am not. We have switched back to in-person at this point. This past year, I did the online classes for the year, and then switched back to the in-person platform. But my website is letsdancekids.com. My contact info is on there. So, you know, anyone's
and they can find you on Instagram.
They can, and on Facebook as well. There's a lot of fun and cute pictures that they can kind of check out on Instagram and Facebook too. I've relaunched my Facebook page, but on Instagram, there's pictures that go back a few years now. So they can get a sort of vibe for, you know, the classes, the studio, and just see some fun pictures of some fabulous young ladies.
If you're in the Winter Garden, Florida area, please definitely reach out to Jennifer if you're interested in classes or just interested in learning more.
Yeah. Thank you, Angela, so much for having me today. I always love chatting with you, whether we're on the podcast or otherwise at the pool or wherever, or just, or a quick, hey, you're driving by in the car, you know, but I always love our conversations and I appreciate you so much.
I always feel happier after I talk to you. You're like,
thank
you.
Thank you.
You're welcome,
and the same holds true for me. Thank you, Angela.
Thanks. All right. Thank you, Jennifer.
All right. You're welcome. Bye.
I just adore Jennifer, and I hope you enjoyed that interview and you learned some special tips from her, like not having it all figured out before you start your business, and learning how to just push through the fear and just taking small steps, and eventually you turn around and you've built an amazing business. So thank you so much to Jennifer for sharing her time and her story. And sharing stories like this is just so important because it helps anyone who wants to start a business realize that they're not alone. It's scary. It's not easy. But in the end, just like Jennifer said, no regrets. And I hope that you took away some really great points that she had to share in that regard. So thank you again. I have just, I have to pinch myself that I have the opportunity to spend my days talking to amazing entrepreneurs and learning from them and sharing their stories and hearing the amazing feedback that I'm getting. I appreciate you all so much. I can't express that enough. But if you found this episode helpful, please, please, please leave a review. It really does help the show, and it is completely free. You go to the little hamburger menu on Apple Podcasts, or look for how to leave the podcast a review wherever you listen. And once you leave a review, you can also do a little screenshot and tag me on Instagram. You can find me at angela.masciulli, MASCIULLI, and I'll leave that information below in the show notes. And then also you can feel free to message me or reach out with any questions. And until next time, thank you so much again. I think I've said that numerous times, but the gratitude is real. I appreciate you guys so much. And until next time, thanks so much for listening. Have a great rest of your week.